We have Dr. Gbonjumola Babalola. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about how important it is for us to have conversation about Men's Mental Health Month, and where we are in terms of the attention that men get regarding their mental health.
All right, well, thank you for spotlighting and actually having me in the studio to talk about it. Largely because a lot of focus is usually on women and children at the detriment of men. But what we're coming to realize over time is that men suffer too, men struggle too, but people rarely talk about it. You know, like in your introduction, you had said it's an overlooked issue. But it doesn't mean that men don't have problems. Men have a lot of problems. Men have mental health problems. And even though they don't like to talk about it, they don't like to admit it, they don't like to get help for it, it doesn't make it, nonetheless of an issue. The Men's Mental Health Month, like we rightly know, is June, and it's a time to draw attention, not just to the plight of men as regards their mental health, but to also encourage them to seek support. Because men would rather, wait till the end, either by taking their own lives or deciding that, I can't do anything for myself anymore, and so let me see what best I can do for my mental health. Over time, of course, a lot of issues affect men's mental health. Issues like employment issues, relationship issues, financial issues, and of course, issues that have to do with, issues affecting their ego and all of that. So men suffer too, men struggle too, and it's important that we shine the spotlight on men.
How do we strike a balance between those who believe, because I've seen this a few times, people who say, well, it's men's mental health. If men aren't championing it, then, whatever. Why should society care if you, who's a man, is not even championing you men's mental health? Same thing with, the International Day of the Boy Child, which I complained about. What do you think, the conversation around that should be? If men, you just said it now, that a lot of men, shy away from talking about it, until it gets too late. They don't seek help. They don't, even mention anything. So if that is already the norm, should we then encourage more men to talk about it? Or should society generally just accept it, that it's a concern that must be spoken about, regardless of how eager men are to speak about it?
Well, so we as society have failed over time, and it's largely, driven by the norms of the society. The fact that, you hear things like men don't cry, men shouldn't show emotions, men are being too sensitive, you should man up, and, but, and I see that look on your face, you should man up, and somehow men have learned, consciously and unconsciously, to put their own needs and their own, wants at the back seat as regards when you have women and children. Put the women and children first. A man can always, take care of himself. But what has happened is that we've seen men crumble under pressure. Yeah. Sometimes it's not even a lot of pressure. Sometimes it's just, simple day-to-day, normal stresses, traffic, arguments, in traffic, arguments in workplace, aggression, and all of that. So it's our collective responsibility. We can't say because men are not doing it for themselves that we should not do it for them. We can encourage more men to talk about their mental health. And, in encouraging more men to talk about their mental health, it's also important to create enabling environments, because it's not just enough to say, talk to me now. Yeah. If you talk to me and I'm invalidating or judging you immediately you're talking to me, then of course it defeats and deflates the entire topic. So beyond asking men to, be on the forefront, and a lot more men are doing that, being on the forefront, even though, quite a number of men are still put down when, they come out and say, we want to talk about the boy child, we want to talk about men, but it shouldn't deter men. Men should continue to, put in the work. And of course, men should be supported by the women who love them as well.
And I'm glad that you highlighted that. So let's talk about how women can support them. What are some of the things that we can do? Women, and then as a society in general, yes. Because I see that sometimes when you go on social media, you read the comment section on posts where people are being vulnerable, you will see them that if a man decided to be vulnerable, in the same breath, while some people are saying to him, oh, I applaud you, you're strong, thank you for sharing your story, there will be other people who are tearing him down and saying, oh, God, man up, why are you there crying like, we see comments like, why are you crying like a woman? Because his emotions have been made a gender-specific thing. So how do women support men more? And how can we as a society, especially even on social media, be kinder to men and encourage them to share more?
Also, first off, we need to see men as humans, not machines. We also need to see vulnerability as strength, not, frailty, not weakness or anything. We need to create enabling environments. And so beyond being, being informed that, oh, this is a man, he has emotions too, and he can show his emotions in different ways as he may decide. We must also be responsive to them. And so when they do speak to us, we must, respond in kind, compassionate, and non-judgmental manners. it takes a man a lot to speak to anyone. You know, I have a couple of friends who are male, and it's not the first time you talk to them that they would open up to you. It's not the second time. It's not the third time. It's consistency. And so we need to be patient with the process. Just because, you know, a woman would open up, you know, cry on your shoulder, want a hug almost immediately, doesn't mean a man will do almost the same thing. And so we need to be patient with the process for men. I would, of course, always want to talk about what I know as the 4 L's, encouraging men to talk. The first thing is that we need to learn about men's mental health. There's something like men's mental health, and so we need to be curious and be informed and educated about it. Number 2, we need to listen in a kind, compassionate, and non-judgmental manner. When they speak to us, let us validate them. It's okay to cry, it's okay, just open up. The third thing is that, of course, we need to look out for them. And so let's look out for the men in our lives, the ones we love, the ones we work with, the ones we interact with every now and then. Let's start to notice the changes, either subtle or large. So subtle, isolating, withdrawing, not wanting to talk to people. Extreme, drinking excessive alcohol, becoming physically or, you know, verbally aggressive, things that they would not normally do from time to time. And then, of course, the last is that we must link them up with sources of support. You will tell them, I know someone you can talk to. I can follow you. I can support you on this journey. You don't have to do it alone. So again, learn about mental health, listen to them in a kind, compassionate, and non-judgmental manner, link them up with sources of support, and of course, look out for them as well.
I just, you know, want to quickly mention that I may not be showing up at work on Monday. My mental health is
in advance.
My mental health is in shambles, and I need to take care of myself. Yeah. And that's how offices need to support men's mental health also. Understand the times that we're stressed out mentally, and we can't show up at work on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday.
You just want to add to the Salah holiday.
Yes, the whole of next week, and maybe next week Monday, because Sunday evenings are really depressing. You know.
Yeah.
But let's just talk about it. You know, in the Nigerian context, the Nigerian wife. How does the Nigerian wife understand the concept of men's mental health and support her husband?
All right, so I think that's a very interesting question, and I was thinking about it when I was coming here this morning. You know, a few years ago, I had managed a patient who became depressed. The female became depressed. And when we had this family session, her mother said something very instructive. She said she had always instructed her daughter not to support her husband, that it is a man's job to do this, to do this, to do this, and even if you see him bending under pressure, don't help him. Because if you help him, it will feel like he's full, and he will, you know, go and start looking for babes outside and all that. And I looked at the woman, wow. Part of why the young lady had been admitted was because her husband actually struggled. He struggled with work, he struggled with finances, and even though she had, because of, you know, what her mother had handed down to her. So there are narratives that are being handed down to people that are largely destructive. Yes, there have been, you know, narratives about men in the past, but not all men are like that. And of course, like, you know, Olive also said, we need to show men kindness. Just because one man had done something in a certain way doesn't mean that all men will do it. And so I think that women need to be more patient, more tolerant, more allowing, and more understanding of the man that they're with. It is not solely a man's responsibility to shoulder so much. Yes, he's the provider, and over time he sees himself as, you know, the Superman, not wanting to drop the ball at any point. But if you see that your man, you don't even have to wait till he struggles. Have conversations about, you know, what the house looks like, what income looks like, which is why a lot of men don't even tell their wives what they earn, because they feel like, oh, once the woman knows, she just sits down and doesn't want to do anything. So I think that women, Nigerian wives, should see their husbands from a wider lens. Don't place a judgment on him based on what you heard. Individualize your man, understand your man, and support your man. He will not take you for granted. Respect is reciprocal.
I'm glad that you actually mentioned this scenario of a patient whose parents had handed her those harmful thought processes.
Yes.
Do you think that our generation is perpetrating the same cycle? And I ask this because now we're becoming more aware of certain things. We're seeing that I would think that a number of parents are starting to prioritize both children.
Yes.
But when we're growing up, I think that there was a lot of focus on women being sexually abused, and we didn't see a lot of conversations about men being sexually abused. So when we women came together, a number of us will share experiences, and when we share experiences, you see, according to WHO, 1 in 3 women have been abused. I think that statistics is outdated, by the way. But more men have been sexually abused as well, but I don't think that they talk about it enough. So do you think that we are correcting the mistakes of our parents in terms of prioritizing the male child in how we raise children?
I don't think you could have said it any better. And yes, a lot more attention is being given to the male gender as compared with only or solely the female gender. And so a lot of conversation is, around those topics. So for instance, I have a male child, and I say he comes to me and he says, "I love you, mommy, you're the best mommy in the whole wide world," almost, 10 times a day. When he's emotional, he cries, and I say it's okay to cry. So again, starting from the home, not asking them to bottle up emotions, not asking them to dismiss how they're feeling, not making them feel like, they're inferior because, they're a certain way. They're supposed to be a certain way to women. That's where the conversation should start. Again, environments and the society should be more allowing of conversations around men. You talk about our generation. Our generation is, as I almost said, we're woke. We're more informed, and we're more educated, and we have more, we're more empowered to be able to deal with these issues as compared with prior generations. And so I hope that we will do better. Because what has happened to the generations before ours is that we see broken men. We see men who are hurt because nobody helps them. Nobody listened to them, first of all, and nobody helped them to tend to the needs that they had in those days.
As quickly as you can, because we need to wrap this up. Talk to men who detest the idea of therapy, who know that they need therapy, but just feel like, I'm not sure I want to share.
First of all, it's expensive, and we have school fees to pay.
I know it is expensive. But for those who can afford it, but just don't want to explore the idea of therapy because it seems like a very foreign Western concept.
So, dear men, please open up. Please talk to us. Therapy may seem expensive. However, at the end of the day, the benefits that you get are listless. If you don't speak to your trauma or handle your own trauma, what you'd find is that you'd keep handing down trauma to the next generation. We understand that you struggle. We understand that there's a lot of pressure. But please, find someone that you can trust to speak to. Thank you.
No better way to wrap up the conversation about men's mental health and mental well-being. Other than that, thank you so much, Dr. Gbonjumola Babalola. It's always a pleasure to have you speaking about mental health conversations.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks,
all right.